Hello, my name is Drew. I am the youth pastor at WayPoint Church, and thank you for watching, first of all. I'm going to be talking a little bit about youth ministry at WayPoint Church, hopefully in an efficient and timely manner. And we're going to talk about finances a little bit, so if numbers bore you to death, parts of this might get kind of rough, but hey, that's all right. Would like to talk about the year behind, what youth ministry has been like at WayPoint Church, and what we have in store for the year ahead. And all of this is going to be with the finances in mind at the same time. So our financial picture and how we handle money as a youth ministry. But before we talk about the school year, the 2019-2020 school year, I have to back up actually and talk a little bit about the 2018-2019 year, even though that goes back in time a little bit further. 18 and 19 was a tough year for us financially because it was the first year that we had to raise the price of our summer camp. And our winter camp as well, we had to raise the price of that. But our summer camp lift, which is kind of like the pinnacle of our ministry, saw a substantial increase in price. And it wasn't because we were like, you know what, we want to charge more money to these kids. You know, that sounds like a good idea. No, we don't operate that way. In fact, we, to a fault, undercharge for virtually everything. So, but what had happened was Camp Soundview, we are their longest standing customers at the moment. And they had been offering us a ridiculous rate. Okay, they'd been charging us a rate they were trying to honor from the previous leadership group that was there, and this new group that was brought in to kind of rescue Soundview. Some of you might remember that Soundview itself was actually in quite a bit of hot water several years ago, and this new group is part of the reason why they're still here. And to put it simply, this new group is wanting to actually charge what they're worth and turn Soundview into something that is financially feasible. So basically they sat down with us and they said, hey, we can't give you this much of a discount anymore. We have to actually charge you what we're worth. And we said, okay. And so we crunched the numbers and determined what we would need to charge for the camp. So what this created was a disproportionate need for scholarships. Something that we say for all of our events that we do as a youth ministry is we don't want money to be the reason why anybody doesn't go. And so our ability to project or predict how many scholarships would be requested to come to camp, what I didn't take into account, what we did not take into account, was because of the increase in price, the increase in need for scholarships. Okay, so in 2018, 2019, we ended up as a church spending quite a lot of money to pay for scholarships. So it's important to note that those funds were not wasted. Now, from a business perspective, you might look at this and be like, dude, that's like several $1,000s that you didn't budget for, and it's got to come from somewhere, right? Well, I just wanted us to keep in mind that those funds are not wasted. Every penny went to help a student be at camp who otherwise may not have been able to attend. So what this did is it forced us to reevaluate our scholarship process and how we give those out. And just as an overall thing to keep in mind, everything we spend money on as a youth ministry has a purpose and design. Sodas, curriculum materials, Bibles, board games, everything has a purpose, and we really are quite frugal. The leaders are almost frugal to a fault. I try to encourage them, like, if you need something, save your receipts. But every single thing that we purchase, that we buy, that we spend money on, it is done so with a specific design because we believe that it will open the door of ministry further to reach more kids on the peninsula and surrounding areas. So to talk about I don't really want to talk about how the scholarship fiasco went haywire in 18-19. I want to bring us into 19 and 20 and talk about the scholarship process and the plan that we came up with in 2019, which I think was a brilliant plan to solve this problem. But just to illustrate how we are looking at funds as a ministry. So this is the numbers part, you guys, just to give you a warning. I'm going to let you into the brain of Drew. Okay, I'm going to let you see inside my brain. Don't look around too much, it's kind of scary in here. But right now you should be looking at a very simple spreadsheet that I like to call the camp cost calculator. And this is all automated, okay? I totally nerded out using Google Sheets to produce this thing, but what we have And by the way, don't be thrown off by the numbers that you're looking at right now. A lot of these are just plugged in by, for example. But we have four major fields that we're looking at. Okay, we have total income, which is this number here. That's actually that number right there is the result of just numbers that I plugged in just to use as an example. That's not at all accurate. Okay, that number is going to be way, way higher when we have lift. That's going to be a combination of donations, fundraisers, and people paying for camp, which, you know, we hope that a lot of people can pay the full price for camp. So that number will be huge. And then the next is the total expenses number. That's when all is said and done, that's how much we have given to Soundview. Okay, that's how much we have to pay them to have this camp, including, it's not just to Soundview, it's including the other things, the sweatshirts, some extra snacks, prizes, just other things that we kind of add on to camp to make it a better experience. And then the next figure is going to be the net cost, which is total expenses minus total income. It's pretty simple. It's how much it's going to cost us as a church. Now, we do budget some money specifically to cover scholarships. We're going to talk about that in a second. But that's what this in the red takes into account. So if you look at in the red, what in the red is it's the cost of camp, the net cost of camp, but with the scholarship money that was intended for that purpose subtracted from that. So our hope is that in the red number would be gone. We want it to be zero. In fact, we maybe even want it to be negative, okay? We want to actually have some money that we can save. That would be ideal, but that money is for that purpose, so we're not going to feel bad about spending it. But our idea for that in the red figure to be as absolutely close to zero as possible, and I think we can do it because of three big things, okay? And those three things are the trifecta solution that I want to talk about. But in case you're curious, I'll show you the second page of this Google sheet that talks about the cost of camp, because you might be wondering, why is camp so expensive? You know, maybe you remember a happier time when you could rent a full-fledged camp for $10,000 or $5,000 or maybe even less. But for what we are getting at Camp Soundview, we are still one of the less expensive week-long camps out there. Christa camps are way more expensive than that, and they run a really great camp program. But if you look around, you can find other camps, but really what it boils down to is what are you getting for the money? And for what we are still able to offer at Soundview, it's really a spectacular experience. So this spreadsheet here, I've got a list of costs here, and this is all carried over from 2019 because guess what? We didn't have camp in 2020, so we can't really use that as an example here. But you can see this is a list of everything that we spend money on at Soundview. And then down below, inside this yellow box, this is for me to experiment with, or whoever's doing it can experiment with this. They can plug in different numbers into these yellow fields to say, well, how much money do you think we're going to get from donations? How much are we going to get from fundraisers? And then how much are we budgeting from the scholarship budget to offset that? And what all this does is it takes our total cost from this 28,000 figure and brings it down to this 18,820 figure. And then it all automatically calculates and shows us what our end tuition is going to be. Now, what we're looking at here shows us a much lower number. In 2019, we charged $265 per student to come to camp. If we can meet these goals, we can actually charge less for camp this year, which would be really great, but it all depends on some of those goals being met. Obviously, if we have that much extra money, that's the first thing I'm going to do is make camp cheaper, because I think that's the right thing to do. I've always said, only half jokingly, that if somebody were to just write us a check for 30 grand for camp, we'd just make it free. I wouldn't charge any money. Or I'd have two camps, 2 years in a row where it's half the price, right? I would love to do something like that. So that's what we're working with. We're going to charge as little as we possibly can to make that happen. So that's just a picture of camp. If you want, you can screenshot that if you want. In 2019, 2020, we had a concrete plan going in to help keep up with the increased need for scholarships. I know for most of us, just saying no to students is just simply not in our DNA. Just saying, oh, you can't afford to come to camp? That's tough. You just can't go. That's not something that we were going to do. We were going to find any way to get them there. So we came up with 3 brilliant solutions, each approaching the problem from a different angle. The first solution is just to vet who gets scholarships more carefully. The year prior, it was way too easy to get a scholarship. All you had to do was say, I want a scholarship, and you'd get it. And of course, anybody, you'd choose to go to camp for free if you could. And so the first was to create a vetting process so that when somebody needs a scholarship, they have to go through a questionnaire that asks them a couple of questions and makes it abundantly clear what the scholarship is for. It's not just for kids who'd rather pocket their money instead of spending it on camp. And if they get through that end of that process, they are also then told that they have to sign up for 2M, which is our student service group, and they have to agree to go to a work party. Now, this is only if they are a student in our network. If that's a new student, somebody invites their friend and their friend can't afford camp, we don't give them that obligation. They come with no obligation, but students are told that they need to join 2M and do some work parties, at least one work party, in order to get that scholarship. So what that does is it filters out anybody that might just be casually asking for a scholarship. It makes sure that the only people who sign up for it are people who actually need it. And they end up having to have a conversation with us instead of just getting the scholarship, no questions asked. The second solution was to increase the amount of money in the youth budget, specifically for the purpose of providing scholarships. So until 2020, we've always had an annual operating budget of a certain amount, and it's really just up to us to decide what we're doing with that money. So our youth group, which runs every week, we have a weekly operating budget for things like sodas, curriculum, whatever, what have you. And so it would be up to me to basically look at this big pile of money and be like, how are we going to split that up? How much are we going to spend that on meeting with students? How much are we going to spend on curriculum materials? And then how much of that do you want to go toward paying for camp scholarships, because we're going to need some. So up until now, really, that's all just been one chunk of money, and it's been rather difficult to track income because we have people paying for camps, and that's going to subtract from that too. So right now, if you look at the youth ministry profit and loss sheet, it looks absolutely upside down because that there isn't that income to offset it, right? So it doesn't show a true expense in that sense. So the second part of this three-phase solution is to have more money specifically for that purpose. So starting this year, the budget committee and the elders agreed that there should be more money given just for that purpose. So now we actually have a second youth fund that is specifically to pay for scholarships. Okay? It doesn't serve that money's not for anything else. It won't get spent on anything. The only thing that it's for is for scholarships. So that helps us offset the cost as well. And then the third solution, which feeds right into that, is fundraisers. Okay, we've never really done fundraisers before because we never felt like we needed to. Well, the times have changed. Okay, so now we, some of you may remember, we tried to have this huge dessert auction back in March, but what do you know? Worldwide pandemic started and that got canceled. But our plan was to have a really big, successful fundraiser and hopefully pull in a few $1,000s, and that would actually go toward that scholarship fund. So those three things working together would have helped us stay in the financial black, as it were. So I just wanted to give you that picture. If you're somebody who likes to pore over numbers and you're looking at our financial situation, look, I'm not here to make excuses for anything. I'm learning how to do this job every single day, and finances, I'm learning every day, right? But I just want everyone watching this to know that not a penny of this has gone to waste. We are seeing lives change, and our youth ministry is growing.